Good morning. Happy Easter. This is Reverend Mike Caper from the First Presbyterian Church of Elmwood Park. And we have our Easter sermon this morning. We're going to read from two texts from the Gospel of John and talk about how they go together. How is Easter like running out of wine at a wedding festival? Stay tuned to find out. All right, John 20, 11 through 18, one of the classic Easter passages. Mary Magdalene has gone to the garden to anoint Jesus' body. She's expecting to find him in the tomb, but the tomb is empty. John and Peter come, they check it out, they go. Mary is still there, and here's what happens at verse 11. Mary stood weeping outside the tomb. As she wept, she bent over to look into the tomb, and she saw two angels in white, sitting where the body of Jesus had been lying, one at the head, the other at the feet. And they said to her, "Woman, why are you weeping?" She said to them, "They have taken away my Lord, and I do not know where they have laid him." When she said this, she turned around and saw Jesus standing there, but she did not know that it was Jesus. Jesus said to her, "Woman, why are you weeping? Whom are you looking for?" Supposing him to be the gardener, she said to him, "Sir, if you've carried him away, tell me where you have laid him, and I will take him away." And Jesus said her name, Mary. And she turned and said to him in Hebrew, "Rabboni," which means teacher. Jesus said to her, "Do not hold on to me, because I have not yet ascended to the Father. But go to my brothers and say to them, I am ascending to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God." Mary Magdalene went and announced to the disciples, "I have seen the Lord." And then she told him he had said these things to her. What a joyous story of surprise on Easter. Now, John chapter 2, verses 1 through 11, the famous wedding at Cana. On the third day, there was a wedding in Cana of Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. Jesus and his disciples had also been invited to the wedding. When the wine gave out, meaning they ran out of it, the mother of Jesus said to him, "They have no wine." And Jesus said to her, "Woman, what concern is that to you and to me? My hour has not yet come." His mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." Now, standing there were 6 stone jars for the Jewish rites of purification, each holding 20 or 30 gallons. Jesus said to them, "Fill the jars with water," and they filled them up to the brim. He said to them, "Now draw some out and take it to the chief steward." So they took it. When the steward tasted the water that had become wine and did not know where it had come from, although the servants who had drawn the water knew, the steward called to the bridegroom and said to him, "Everyone serves the good wine first and the inferior wine after the guests have become drunk. But you have kept the good wine until now." Jesus did this, the first of his signs in Cana of Galilee, and revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. There are a lot of events or passages in life that are transformative, that move us from one stage to another, even one life to another. Graduation, uprooting and moving to a new place, parenting, all these qualify. Marriage is another. I remember when my wife Lynn and I got engaged. Interestingly, that was Easter Sunday 25 years ago. We were latecomers to marriage, both of us 34 years old, and neither of us ever married before. We were ready and we fell pretty hard. We had been friends for a while, but our first official date was in October, and we got engaged in April. When the wedding rolled around in August, she was a little more nervous than I was. That was because I got over my nerves early. I got scared around the engagement. The proposal was fine, but after a few days, the enormity of it hit me. Marriage, till death do us part. You know, both she and I had gotten used to being on our own. What would it be like to have another person sharing space so closely? I definitely had a case of the willies. but I was in touch with something that was real. Here is a true statement. To start a new life, you have to give up your old life. Leave home for a new career, you have to leave home. Get married, you have to stop living alone. Be a parent, you give up a lot of independence, convenience, and sleep. Become a Christian, you have to die to sin and be raised to new life. In one of the passages we read last week, John 12:23-26, Jesus said this, "The hour has come for the Son of Man," that's Jesus, "to be glorified. Very truly, I tell you, unless a grain of wheat falls to the earth and dies, it remains just a single grain. But if it dies, it bears much fruit. Those who love their life lose it, and those who hate their life in this world will keep it for eternal life. Whoever serves me must follow me, and where I am, there will my servant be also." You know, here's a true statement. To start a new life, you have to give up your old life. The part of God that is Jesus gave up much to be here on earth. The Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we have seen his glory, the glory as of a Father's only Son, full of grace and truth. God gave up immortality and power to embrace fragile mortality, along with facing all the human opposition and stubbornness that Jesus encountered. And the Jesus that is also God fully embraced that mortality in the passage in the garden. Jesus, knowing all that was going to happen to him, including the cross, went out and asked the soldiers, "Who is it you want?" "Jesus of Nazareth," they replied. "I am," Jesus said. Jesus steps forward and volunteers himself. His time has come and he knows it. He is ready to do the real work that brought him into this world. In John 10:17, he says, "The reason my Father loves me is that I lay down my life only to take it up again. No one takes it away from me, but I lay it down of my own accord. I have authority to lay it down and authority to take it up again. This command I received from my Father." Yes, when the time comes, Jesus is ready. But John 2, the wedding at Cana, that is not the time. He tells his mother, "My hour has not yet come." Here is a true statement. To start a new life, you have to give up your old life. That's true even for Jesus. He tries to tell his mom that it isn't his problem, that he's just a guest at the wedding, that he isn't in the catering business. She shrugs and tells the servants to do whatever Jesus tells them to do. And so the servants look at Jesus expectantly. Jesus' mother exhibits a great deal of kindness in this passage. It would be embarrassing for any of us if a family wedding reception ran out of what was expected and promised. In the culture of first century Palestine, the shame of that moment would be far worse. In our culture, it might turn into a joke after a year or two. For them, it would be no joking matter. People would remember them as the family that couldn't even provide for their own children's wedding feast. The fact that they ran out probably means that the bride and the groom come from poor families who could not afford any more. Isn't that the way of things? Rich people can get whatever they want. Poor people cannot. Whether you're talking about wine at a wedding, or health care, or food, or housing, educational opportunities, or the time to accomplish things, or whatever, the wine is always running out. There is never enough wine. We just can't do it all. We all feel helpless in one area of life or another. What are you going to do? Well, you could try turning to Jesus. What's he going to do? It's an interesting moment in the story. So far, only the servants and some of the women who were involved in the wedding preparations really know about the problem. The newlyweds don't know about it. The master of ceremonies doesn't know about it. Most of the guests don't know about it. The servants are standing there looking at Jesus. Jesus looks around and sees 6 stone jars, each one of which can hold 20 to 30 gallons. He tells the servants to fill them all with water. Now, I don't know how far away the nearest well was, but no matter how you look at it, that is a lot of buckets full of water. The faith of the servants to follow Jesus' instructions is remarkable. They obey without question. Once the 150 gallons of water have been fetched, the servants look at Jesus. He tells them to take a mug of it to the master of the ceremony. They shrug and do it. I have to imagine the guy carrying this mug looks at it and notices that it isn't quite the same color. It smells different too. Sweet. I picture him dipping a finger in and tasting it, and I'm seeing his eyes getting really big as he realizes he's carrying wine. And now I'm trying to imagine his facial expression while he watches the master of ceremonies tasting this new wine. Well, the master gets kind of a dissatisfied look on his face and looks vaguely upset. He stands up and quickly goes over to the groom to lecture him on protocol. Everyone serves the good wine first, and then when people have drunk freely, then the poor wine. But you've kept the good wine until now. The groom has no idea what he is talking about, but will undoubtedly notice a little later that the quality of the wine has greatly improved. And that really is the end of the story, at least as far as most people are concerned. Recently, I've heard a lot of people using the phrase, "It is what it is." But in the Gospel of John, it would be better to say, "It is more than what it appears to be." So a simple wedding is not just a simple wedding. Our guide in this series of sermons on the Gospel of John is author Bruno Barnhart. And I've been telling you a little bit about the subtitle of his book, Reading John from the Center. You could imagine a drop of water hitting the surface of water and the ripples going out. He thinks the center of the Gospel of John is in chapter 6, and then he's got this series of texts that go outward. Well, the primary title of the book is The Good Wine, and Barnhart asserts that the wedding at Cana in John 2 comes at the same level of ripple as the resurrection in John 20. If you were to count the days, you would find that in John 2, it is the 6th day since Jesus was baptized by John the Baptist and has begun his ministry. By the way, in Genesis, the 6th day is the creation of men and women. We are the last stage in creation, and both men and women were made in God's image. Genesis 1:27, God created humankind in his image. In the image of God, he created them, male and female, he created them. So Jesus arrives late at this party toward the end of the week, just when things are running out, when human resources are depleted, when everlasting shame and futility appear that they will get the last word. Already there, unused and available, are how many? 6 expensive stone jars. What are they used for? Ceremonial washing. You washed with them and became physically clean. The dirt was washed from you and collected in the dirty water in the jars. You also became spiritually clean. Jewish people at that time were very concerned with what was clean and what was unclean. I'm oversimplifying, but these jars made unclean things clean. So you have these 6 big stone jars. I'm tempted to call them bathtubs because you wash the dirt off yourself and the water gets dirty as you get clean, but they aren't big enough to be bathtubs. Jesus tells the servants to fill them up. They obey Jesus, and suddenly the situation is completely transformed. Where there was scarcity, a depletion of human resources, a complete inability to have barely enough, much to our shame and embarrassment over our helplessness, and inability to make things work on our own terms, suddenly there is abundance. And not only is there an abundance of wine, not only is there enough to meet the human need, but the quantity vastly exceeds what was needed. And not only is the quantity abundant, But the quality, oh my God, this is the best wine anyone has ever tasted. This wine is crazy good, astonishingly good. And that, my friends, is what happens when Jesus is around. The people who know the story best, who have the inside track, are the lowest of the low, the servants' waiting table. Right along with them are Jesus' motley collection of disciples. The bride, the groom, their parents, they may find out what happens later on, but at the time they do not know the extraordinary grace of God that has been shown to them. And the master of ceremonies, representing all good stuffed shirt Pharisees everywhere and in every time, is mildly contented to find that he has one more thing to complain about and gives the groom a hard time on his wedding day. This is a kind of a universal pattern for the Gospel of John and really for life. We have talked in past weeks about the healing of the paralyzed man in John 5 and the guff the Jewish authorities give Jesus for healing on the Sabbath. We have talked about the healing of the man born blind in chapter 9 and the guff the Jewish authorities give Jesus for healing on the Sabbath. The paralyzed man and the blind man, they know the truth of the statement. To start a new life, you have to give up your old life. Their old lives have been awful. They don't take much persuading. People who are doing all right, like Rabbi Nicodemus in chapter 3, they try to hedge their bets. They're interested in Jesus, but cautious. They kind of like their old life, but there's something about Jesus. People like High Priest Caiaphas at the top of the food chain, he loves his old life. He is not interested in new life and will do anything to avoid change. So he tells his peers, "You know nothing at all. You do not realize that it is better for you that one man die for the people than that a whole nation perish." It's as good a rationale for torture and murder of an innocent as any, I suppose. But then, John 20, the tomb is empty. It's the same story as John 2. Human resources are depleted. They had put their hopes in a human teacher, but he had been executed by the rich and powerful. There seems to be no hope. Only grief and shame remain. Only tears. And the risen Christ appears to a different Mary, Mary Magdalene, and slowly the truth becomes clear. It isn't merely that Jesus was raised from the dead. We all will be. There was a scarcity of hope. Now there is an abundance, and the quality of the new wine of resurrection is far, far better and sweeter than anything we could have hoped or imagined. Sooner or later, this truth will dawn on you and break through into your life. So why not let it be sooner? Savor your wine, smell its aroma, live life to the fullest, which cannot be done without Jesus the Christ. All the parties are much better with him in attendance. Here is a true statement. To start a new life, you have to give up your old life. John 2:11. Jesus did this, the first of his signs in Cana of Galilee, and revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. Let us do likewise. Happy Easter, my friends. Amen.